Hello.
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 Oh, good. Audio is working in both directions. One day that will be a given. Maybe.
You'd think 3 years into this new world order that it would just work, but no, here we are.
Yeah. Did you hear Zoom is ordering employees back to the office or like hybrid or something like that?
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, like it reads like an Onion article, but
Our product is great in moderation.
right.
Do we know, or we expecting Surtesh and or Rita?
I think so. I can ping them real quick.
Shrika's just joined.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. Are we officially switching to dots instead of dashes? I'm for it.
Oh, I just default to bullets.
That's why I'm for it. I was like copy paste
I didn't even
the
think about it.
entry in the previous list to like get the formatting because I don't want to figure out how to fuss with the bullet format. Maybe it's easy. How do you? No, it's not. Dashes aren't in the default option. Yeah, wonder how that happens.
My guess is they copied them from another doc.
Someone felt strongly enough about this.
Probably like
make
10
one
years
work.
ago. And they've been copying it ever since.
We've been diligently keeping that uniformity legacy alive.
You can do dashes. I mean, I just do dash. I don't click on the buttons.
Oh, really? You do like dash and
Yeah,
tab or
yeah.
something?
Oh,
and
it
and
auto
put
converts it to a
Yeah.
managed one. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Looks like we've probably got something resembling a quorum, whatever that is.
how dare you say I resemble a quorum?
I added this first item here. I am just reviving this conversation because this was a design doc that Sartaj and Rita asked me to look into, and I have just gotten around to doing some reading on it today. This excluding constraints from audit, which it looks like the conversation kind of turned into a little bit more of an in-depth discussion on specific audit actions, like more granularly controlling the audit or the enforcement actions that we take against specific constraints. And so I am spending a little time looking at the doc and just familiarizing myself with the various options that are laid out here, but I kind of just wanted to bring it up and see if folks were good to like revive this conversation and maybe consider an approach or consider some changes for 314 that might address this.
I think it's definitely a topic that needs to be addressed at some point if we want to, not just be an admission webhook even. So yeah, I'm for it. I don't know like timeline wise what is sensible, and I would definitely like to like reform whatever opinion before like engaging in discussion like non-trivially, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds good. And like I said, I'm just kind of at the beginning of familiarizing myself with the problem space and like the various options that were laid out in the existing design docs. So I think, by next week, I'll have probably dug in a little bit deeper and can have a little bit more conversation about the various ideas that were laid out. But it looks like something that would be good to kind of chart a path forward on. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up and say that I'm thinking about that. And yeah, I see I'm the only item with a bullet on the agenda. I'm not changing it.
The bullets for emphasis. It's this is the important thing. Everything else.
All right, I cede my time.
The honorable not a senator. Cedes the floor. Sardesh, is that you who put release 3.13?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, the new release is out. So yay.
Nice. Any discussions we want to have
There's no
about that?
discussion. Just
Do we want to
announcement.
pull it back?
Yeah, please promote.
So one thing I'll highlight, actually there's two PRs to highlight. Alex, if you could add a link to your PR to the doc so people are aware. Sartesh and Rita, I expect that the migration of the sync set to the new backend is going to converge. Basically, I'm going to probably LGTM it, if not today, probably tomorrow-ish, just depending on if I have any feedback. So if you have time for it, it would be good to get your eyes on it.
Yeah, sounds good. This is Alex's here, right? The one he just linked, support for multiple sync sources?
I think so. Like, you have one sync set PR, as far as I'm aware, Alex. And it is in the Gatekeeper repository. So if you could put it as its own line, just to keep the topics separate.
Sounds good. But yeah,
Thank
I think that's the one.
Yeah, sounds good. Alex, did you got your questions answered? I think you were confused about the release cadence.
I was, yeah, but I think I got it now. This will go in the next one.
Okay, cool. And then we can cut a beta release anytime like you want if you want to like have a release early. So yeah. So we cut an RC release and then we give it like a 2-week soak time. And if we find then like critical bug fixes and stuff, then that goes on to top of the RC.
That sounds good. Wait, I think Max was onto something and we got sidetracked.
Honestly, oh no, but I mean, the first thing was just to make sure that there's awareness that there is this long-standing PR that is going to start needing attention. I think it might be marked as draft technically. You may want to like unmark it as draft. Yeah. Yeah, and if you could say what that PR is pointing to so people don't have to like click through the link for context if they're reading the notes after the fact. So yeah, is there anything more we want to say about the sync set?
No, not from my end. I think like ShareTouch or Rita, like I'm down to like walk you through the PR because it has had some discussion. So you know, if you find it confusing, just feel free to reach out to me. The next PR will add like a sync set controller. So that's the next step, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sounds good. And then please work with online also. I'm not sure if online is on the call for the sync set stuff. I can ping her also internally.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't see online, is all I was saying.
Yeah, I don't think she's on the call now, but she's aware of the PR. Do you want her to formally like LGTM it before one of you has a look, ShareTouch?
I can ping her, ask if she has time to review it too.
Sounds good.
Cool. I'm going to assume that's all people have to say about that. Feel free to interrupt me if I'm wrong. So to go up a line on this, if you remember the validating admission policy doc I shared a couple of meetings ago, it didn't seem like there was much discussion on it. Like there was some like context that we cleared up. in like the meeting after it was shared, if I remember right. So I just went ahead and wrote a PR that changes the behavior of the prototype to match what's in the doc. So right now it has some lint errors, but it's out there if you guys wanted to fast track that, because it seems like there's some people wanting to play around with something that looks like what will eventually be there. I don't know if we necessarily want to say this is the final picture, right? Like, I don't know how comfortable people are with the state of it because there hasn't been much feedback. I think I'm fine unless like something new comes up. But yeah, if we want to get that out sooner rather than later, it's ready modulo whatever the lint errors are.
And this temporary delete me, is it a fork?
Yeah, so what happens is the design relies on the existence of the variable environment variable in the cell admission validating admission policy. There's a literal like keyword called variables dot
variables name variables.
Yeah, literal the variable string, not the name, not the concept of variables, but also the concept of variables. So it's not confusing at all. But the design, if you remember, says that parameters would go into variables.params.
I see.
Versus params, so that we can have some isolation. So we're not like exposing the full constraint template. Then users can do things like write code that expects a certain, say, schema for match conditions, which then now, if we do anything that updates those, that could be breaking to policy code, blah, blah, blah. Instead, we just needed isolation. And the only way to do that in a world where we're relying on VAP as the actual admission time enforcer is to use variables, right? So walking back a little bit, 2.7 or 1.27 or whatever the current release we're based off of is, doesn't have variables. That code was only merged in the most recent release.
I see.
And so the only way to like shoehorn that in was to fork Kubernetes code. But it's already committed, so
it's like, that's funny. Yeah. The most like just one const.
Yeah, like it's funny the way the code is structured, right? The in 127. They call it, Cell calls them environments, basically the list of global scoped keywords that are accessible to the Cell code. And there's some code in Kubernetes that declares those environments and for validating admission policy. But the way it's written in 127, it's like locked down, right? Like it's all private variables and stuff. So there's no like injection point to add extra context if you want to. They've changed that with the variables PR. So ironically, even if the variables PR didn't exist, we still wouldn't need the fork. That's not really irony, but you know.
So 1.28 out, we'll just render that in and we'll be good, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why it says delete me. Like it's literally just there until we can upgrade.
Could we use the RC?
Controller runtime would be the wild card there. Like maybe. Yeah, the
could we do a replace on
what's up?
Could we do a replace on GoMod?
Well, no, so controller runtime, like we could try to do a replace, but generally speaking, there's always like some amount of incompatible changes, right? Such that
I see.
The old version of controller runtime doesn't work with the newer version of Kubernetes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We can discuss this on the PR. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
That wouldn't change our need to. Well, okay, yeah, we could use. You're saying use the 28 version.
Yeah, the RC one. And I mean, obviously, because like you said, controller runtime might have some issues, so we'll have to test it out if it works or not.
Yeah, I don't think I'm against it in principle. I don't know like what level of hardening people expect, or what Kubernetes goes through from release candidate to actual release. So you know,
I think it's the same thing. I don't think there's any difference.
Okay, it's just soak time.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so maybe, yeah.
I mean, that might be an easier and more like elegant than like copy pasting, but like picking 4 code variables.
Are you saying that this code is not elegant? Is it? Are you suggesting this?
I mean, that's better than our entire fork of controller runtime, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. That, by the way, I'm still pushing on getting those in. I'm having issues getting eyes on either of the 2 controller runtime PRs. Like, as far as I can tell, one of them is ready for review. Like, there's no outstanding comments, but it's been a couple of weeks. So Rita knows them, I think. It might help if, and I can ping her on Slack.
Vince, yeah.
Or if something. What's up?
Were you talking about Vince?
Yeah, Vince PRI is one of them. There's a second one whose handle escapes me at the moment that have been commenting on the PRs. One of them has gotten like no attention, and that's the one that allows for the removal of watches. And the one that has like some attention is the non-blocking get, or non-blocking get for the informer. We need both of those in order to no longer have a fork. So it'd be good to get those through. Like, should I just show up to one of their meetings or something? I honestly don't.
I think that's probably easier, like that, some high bandwidth discussion.
All right.
Yeah, because you had it open since like April and then June for the other one.
Yeah, and it's getting to the point where I'm like rebasing them, but not. I think one of them has like a high level question where I don't want to spend the cycles writing the code until I know what they want to see.
That's probably better to join the community calls for controller runtime. That might be faster. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, with regard to the K8s, using the most recent version of K8s, I feel like the fork is lower impact, right? Like we're not going out on a limb, like because doing the beta code would affect everything, right? Because now we're shifting our entire library to using 28.
But we would merge it to Gatekeeper, right? This would just be on the.
Well, no, it'd be in Gatekeeper. Like Gatekeeper has that flag of enable the prototype so that people can play with it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. This is probably safer then, yeah. Because yeah, like you said, it's going to affect everything else, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know if I feel like absolutely one is the right way, like at least in the moment, but that's my initial leaning.
Yeah, I just don't want to fork it and then just stays there forever, like the the other the controller runtime fork.
Right. Yeah. The difference is this variables code actually exists.
Yeah.
Like we need to do nothing to render the please delete me code irrelevant.
Lesson learned from the other one.
I mean, I would still honestly create a fork for the other one. Like the alternative would be to still use finalizers.
Yeah.
Or to not use controller runtime. And neither of those are particularly.
Yeah, I don't think there was a good option at the time. Yeah, that's why we chose the fork. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Not saying a fork is fun by any means.
Yeah.
Do we have any other topics? Oh, nice. The sound of silences, perhaps. Can really hear the computer fans.
Going once, going twice. Now we can give the time.
Was that?
If not, we can give the time back.
Nice. Whole half hour.
Yeah. Thank you all. Nice to see
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Yeah.